Hey everybody who's joining the live stream today. I will be starting in about 5 minutes. Cool. Thank you. Woo!
Lori's gonna watch on YouTube.
I saw the comment already. It was great, thank you. I tried so hard to get it up on Discord, on a Discord live stream, but I know that my family wouldn't be able to do it because none of them use Discord, and I couldn't record it from Discord either, so I'm just like, screw this, I'm just gonna do it on YouTube. It's easier. So here we are.
If it works, use it.
Yeah, so. And we'll be good to go. Okay, looks like we're getting started. Yay! Thank you to everybody on the stream for attending. This is actually really great. I'm sorry I won't be able to answer any of your questions, probably until the end. I have a moderator who will be looking at the chat for me, and will hopefully be able to bring those questions to me because I can't actually see it. I have a crazy setup right now, and I obviously don't do this often. So anyway, yeah. There should be a mod who will be reading your questions to me from the YouTube channel. So thank you for your patience. Again, I'm sorry I'm not able to interact with you directly on today's live stream, but thank you all for being here and for your support. I really appreciate it. Should be back on now. one more sound check. Please write in the chat if you can hear me, because I guess maybe not. I don't know. Checking in with. What's that? Happy? Yeah, yeah. Thank you. This is so nice. Thank you for having me and for asking me to do this. This is awesome.
This is our fun stuff.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's not this. Anyway.
This is fun for
the
me
fun
too.
stuff.
Oh, this is fun for me too. Thank you.
So I like. Let's get some tacos and sit and listen.
Heck yeah.
Right? It's a good way to do a Tuesday night.
I agree.
There's so many, how-to programming and all that. It's like, yeah, I like the fun stuff.
Community. It's also a community.
Right. Yeah. And there's a lot of people who do how-to programming really well. So why try to do it again? And this is more about, this space is about meeting people and collaborating and community and all that. So this, and we do a coffee and connections that's super casual. And that's our sugar rush with donuts. Yeah. But yeah, we just keep it nice. Ready? Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Hello, everybody. Hopefully that's not too loud. Let me know if it gets too bad. Welcome to the studios at Mesa City Center. My name is Lynn Romero, and I'm the program manager and facilitator of the space. For those of you who haven't been here before, we are a free co-working and event space. So any questions about using our space, we also offer, with a $25 one-time charge, you get 24/7 access to the space. Because we know entrepreneurs don't just work 9 to 5. So you can do nights and weekends too. We also offer a lot of different programming. This one tonight that Ray graciously accepted my invitation is called our Topics and Topics. Tonight's program is about meeting our fellow coworkers, learning what other entrepreneurs in the community are doing, listening to their journeys. And then we also do one once a month, coffee and connections, very informal networking. And then twice a month we have a program called Pitch In. You get 6 minutes to pitch your company to our community, usually 30, 40 people. Just as is, you don't necessarily need to pitch for money. We had one gentleman who created an app and just needed some beta testers, and he had automatic audience. So again, welcome. Thank you, Ray.
Thank you.
I'm so excited for tonight. Ray's going to tell us her story.
All right.
Yay.
Hi, thank you. Thank you so much, Lynn, for inviting me. This is a lot of fun for me to be able to share my work and share my journey as an artist and I guess reluctant entrepreneur. So before I begin, I just want to put a heads up out there for everybody, if this is okay. I'm actually live streaming today's talk. You guys are not on camera, it's just the camera facing me. And to be honest, I only have like 10 followers on YouTube, and none of them really care about what I do. This is largely for my family that is not here tonight, that are all over the States right now. So it's really just more for them so that they can be here as well. Is that okay with everybody? Is that cool? Okay, awesome. Yeah, I just wanted to ask, for confirmation, so thank you. I appreciate that very much. Yep, I am Ray Cameron, and this is my talk, and this is my information. I like to use a system called Linktree. So if you snap the QR code with your phone, it will take you to all of the linkies that go everywhere, to my portfolio, to my website, to all of my socials, YouTube, Discord, all of that fun stuff. So this is my way of not using business code. What's that? Oh, I'm sorry. So this is my way of sharing my information without having to use business cards. Yay. Less paper. All right, so a little bit about me. I am an artist here in Mesa. I am also a maker, and I come from the maker world. And I like to make up titles for myself because I'm working in this sort of emerging tech field, and nobody knows what any of this stuff is yet, so I can, for the most part. So I came up with Metaverse Architect at one point, except nobody really understands what that is either. And so I tried to figure out a more friendly title, I guess. And I guess this is a little bit more niche, but maybe it strikes a chord with a few more people, but Holosuite programmer, if anybody is familiar with Star Trek, that is me. I am a big nerd. So anyway, I'm gonna move on here and talk a little bit about all of this work that I've done. And I'd like to kind of tell you a little bit about my journey, just how I kind of got here. It's a really weird story, I guess. But like starting out as a kid, I was always an artist. I really loved painting. I had a sketchbook, which I took everywhere. And, that was great. In fact, it was really fun putting this presentation together because I got to go through all of my sketchbooks and put in stuff like this, which is fun. But yeah, so coming from an Asian family, artist is not actually a real career. So I see a nod back there from fellow Asian. Yeah, you get it. And so, your career choices are pretty much, doctor or lawyer. And, my mom never explicitly said that, but it was pretty strongly implied. So I think this is largely because my grandfather was also a doctor, and it was just like, oh yeah, carry on the family legacy and all of that fun stuff. So here I was, trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life in high school. And I figured, okay, well, I don't want to be a doctor, but maybe I can do maybe veterinary medicine or something like that, because I like animals. Why not? So around this time, I actually discovered a show that I really loved, and that was Star Trek Deep Space Nine, which was really something that started to inspire me and make me dream bigger. And part of that was this character, played by Terry Farrell. This is Jadzia Dax, who was really a strong woman in the show and someone who was really passionate about science and research and discovery. And I really thought that was amazing. So I had all of these thoughts in my head as a big Star Trek fan, and I got into college, and I got to go to a talk by Andre Bormanis, who's a consultant for the show. And in that talk, he had actually mentioned that they included veterinarians in their crew to create alien species and all these other things. So I thought that was fascinating. And I was like, well, if I become a veterinarian, is that like a career choice? Like, could I be a consultant on Star Trek? That's amazing. And also, like, the other part of me was like, when we find life out there, they're not gonna go to like human doctors, they're gonna go to veterinarians, because this is a completely other species, right? So that was my, young, idealized mind out there. So went down the path. I did pre-veterinary medicine at U of A. Sorry, not a Sun Devil. Please don't hurt me. Probably like second or third year in, went to my first real surgery and passed out, just flat out. So about this time I was like, okay, I can't handle surgery, I don't do blood, like, what other options do I have? And so from that, I went into research, and it was kind of like self-fulfilling prophecy, like I actually got to be Dax at that point. So I have a master's in pathobiology. I can pretty much self-diagnose when I have food poisoning, because that's what I studied for 4 years. Useful skills, people. I'm not using it so much anymore, and thank goodness I haven't had food poisoning in a while, so, yay. So throughout college, I was still exploring my own art and still trying to figure these things out. But for me, it wasn't an actual career. Like, I never even dreamed this could actually be a real thing. And at one point, I discovered a modeling program called View. And it made it really easy to create surrealistic environments in sort of a drag and drop environment. And you could create the sky and add textures to the ground and add trees and other things from nature. And then also add in, random objects. And I'm sorry for the pixely nature of this, because this was before I realized what resolution meant. So these are some of my very, very early CGI artworks. And what I loved about it is I had all of these crazy places in my mind, like places that I would love to see or just be a part of, like alternate realities or, just stories, really. And so I tried to use this program to recreate those things that I saw in my brain. So then, around the same time, one of the things that was kind of gaining popularity was online gaming and online communities in the form of chat rooms. And so one of the earliest communities that I got to be a part of was called Cybertown. And this was a community that was run online, all web-based. And this was very early, like early 2000s. So the technology to put 3D models and things on the web was kind of mind-blowing. But what was brilliant about this is, just like modern games, you had an avatar that represented you. You could customize the avatar to look similar to you or not. It could be a fantasy version of yourself. And you could interact with other players in these really beautiful 3D environments. So they had clubhouses, you could own a home, you could enter competitions, and it was pretty great. I even have a button that I have from winning something. I don't even remember, but anyway, dorky things from that period in time. What's interesting is Cybertown shut down, quite a long time ago, but there are some people that are trying to revive it, like right now. And so using some of the same technology that we used back then, which wasn't great for putting a 3D model on the web, but they're actually trying to recreate the whole experience as it was back then, which is kind of amazing to me, that this sort of metaverse experience still exists. And so briefly, if you haven't heard of the term metaverse, it's basically talking about a simulated reality where real-time online interactions can occur between people. And a lot of times these realities are user-created or user-uploaded. Contrary to popular belief, it has absolutely nothing to do with Mark Zuckerberg's Meta, although I'm sure he would love to take the credit for that one. So as time went on, Cybertown shut down, but then it was replaced by other programs such as Second Life and ImView. And again, these were communities where they got kind of a graphics update, which was kind of fascinating. But some of my earliest works were in Second Life in creating avatar clothing and objects for homes, like furniture. And again, what was really brilliant about these communities is you could create worlds. And so a huge part of my love of the metaverse came from programs like Second Life, where you could go to the other places that came out of people's imaginations, walk around it, and interact with other people in those spaces. Like most things, however, I just kind of figured that this was a passing hobby, not a real job, right? Oh, how things changed. So I finished my master's degree, and I got a job at a community college as a lab manager. And after I finished my job there in 2008, I actually got hired up here so I was in Tucson, and I moved up here to the greater Phoenix area, and I got hired at Arizona Science Center to actually be with my then fiance, now husband, Chad. And so at the Science Center, I started learning about content creation in the science world, and with my background, that seemed kind of perfect. It also taught me science communication, and so this job, here I'm blowing stuff up, but it actually taught me that I have a passion for making complex science concepts more digestible for a general audience. And so my time at the Science Center included a really huge project, which was started by this guy. This is Stephen Wiener. And the Science Center wanted to build a maker space on their property. And Stephen was our director. And he was actually the one that really gave me the motivation to start looking at making as an addition to what I was already doing. So what was brilliant is the space included 3 areas. So in that top corner there, that was my area. I was in charge of the artistry hub. So I got to teach things like a little bit of loose graphic design for sticker making and vinyl cutting and heat transfer designs, excuse me. We also had the electronic zone and the wood shop. And as part of my role there as a manager, we had to learn everything. So this was like a crash course in making, which was fantastic. We got to learn so many different things and help people out there build their dreams as well. So Create was really a turning point for me. It really gave me the confidence to maybe start looking at doing all of this on my own, which was good because in 2019, at the end of 2019, my position was eliminated. So I left Create then, and then I just rolled into Okemah, which is my business now. And it's at the beginning of 2020, Okemah started off as a consulting company, which I was ideally going to help people design maker spaces at libraries or museums or at schools. That was the idea. Maybe do some content on the side for curricula in schools and that sort of thing. However, the pandemic happened at that point, and I was able to create a few things for online learning and such, but making is such a hands-on thing. You need the tools, and part of makerspaces even is the community, being with others, talking with others, and I knew that that was going to be an important piece of the business. So all of that kind of fizzled during the pandemic, and during that time, I just started to find that I was a lot happier looking at going back to art, which is something that I had never even considered before that point in time. So, seeing that I had a lot of time on my hands, I sat down and really started trying to work on the whole 3D modeling thing. I did a lot of 3D modeling for 3D printing specifically when I was working at the makerspace. And so I started there, created a couple of things which I thought were interesting. Nothing that great, but just, fun things to kind of occupy my time. And then the rest of my time went to learning a program called Blender. Blender is a free and open source modeling program, so you could go onto their website and download it for free, and it does a whole host of things, way more than just 3D modeling. You can also do illustration, which is similar to the vending machine on the end there. You can also do animation and video editing. So as a free program, it's pretty remarkable. And it's owned by a foundation that has pretty much promised that Blender is always going to be free. So it is there for a community, it's open source, and people are constantly creating new add-ons and things for Blender that improve it, improve the workflow. And it's just a really friendly community. I was super surprised by, forums and stuff you could go on and ask for help. And people tended to be really, really nice, especially to somebody who's brand new at this sort of thing. So these were some of my experiments during that time, kind of going forward. And then I discovered VR. So a good friend of mine, Ed, gifted me with his old Rift S headset, and my mind was actually just blown. That was my first venture ever into VR, and I was enthralled by the games, but I was also enthralled by the worlds. And so there were programs on there like VR Chat and AltSpace VR, Spatial, and all of these places were, again, user-created and user-designed worlds. So it reminded me a lot of my days in Cybertown and in Second Life. It also kind of brought back some memories from my childhood that I thought would be interesting to explore in the VR world. So I don't know if any of you know this game. Okay, yeah, know my people there. Yeah, so Myst. Funny thing, the creators have now created a VR version of their game. They have ported it to the Quest, which is great. It was like, as soon as I heard about it, I was like, I'm downloading it, that's my childhood. So Myst was an interesting game. It wasn't, for VR initially, but the concept of it was really interesting to me. You're essentially dropped into a very weird fantasy world with no idea what you're supposed to do, and you're supposed to figure it out. So you go around, you solve some puzzles here and there, and you just try and figure it out. And the best thing about the game, so like games back then were great because they shipped in really beautiful boxes. There was like a lot of packaging, and Myst came with a journal. So you could like log all of your things, and this is really funny. I was like flipping through and it was like, oh, those are all my notes from the game. So it really was like you were immersed in another world or another reality. And that was fascinating to me as a child, but even more so now, like VR kind of made that whole experience a little bit more real. And of course, I've never forgotten my Star Trek roots, so, there is also this idea of the hollow suite that was still kind of like ruminating in the back of my mind. I was like, yeah, headsets are kind of like hollow suites. But then the last thing, and right before the pandemic hit, I was able to go to Santa Fe and a couple of other places that were looking at putting in maker spaces. And on one of those trips, I got to visit Meow Wolf's House of Eternal Return. And what this whole experience at Meow Wolf really kind of solidified the idea of being able to create immersive worlds or alternate realities that meshed with our own. So kind of keeping that in mind, during the pandemic, I feel like we were all really reaching out, for meaningful connections with each other when we could do nothing except stay at home. And this was really especially hard for me. I didn't have any local family so much. All of my family has been in like New York and in Washington State and in California. And so it was even more isolating to be in this situation. So during this time, in my exploration of how do I create for VR, like how difficult is this actually going to be, I discovered a program called Mozilla Hubs. And again, Hubs is a free virtual platform that made it incredibly easy to create a world and then share it with your friends. So your friends could join your space, you just send them their web link and they join you on your call. They all get their own avatar and you are in that space together. What was brilliant about Mozilla Hubs is that you didn't need any experience on coding, on 3D modeling, or anything. They had their own interface called Spoke. And with Spoke, they provide you with walls and roofs and floors and a variety of 3D objects that you just drag and drop into the space and then upload it. And magically, you had your own customized space. For me, I wanted to take that a bit further, and fortunately, they had worked with Blender quite a bit, and they had created their own Blender uploader. So I could create all of my models and all of my worlds in Blender. I could light it, I could add all of the fun textures and everything that made it seem real to me looking in on the screen, and it would appear exactly that way in Mozilla Hubs. The most brilliant thing to me, which I'm still struggling with now, but it is a web VR-based program. And so that means it runs from a website. You put in the web address and it brings up your thing. And if you have a VR headset, you just bring that link up in your browser on your headset and you're immersed in that space. And that struck me as a huge accessibility thing. You didn't have an account that you had to log into if you wanted to join a call. You didn't have to download a program to your headset. Heck, you didn't even need a headset to participate. You could just log in and join your friends or a meeting and be immersed. And it had spatial audio, so if someone got closer to you, their voice gets closer to you or louder, and as they back away, it gets fainter. And you can also tell if it comes from the right or the left. So it really did feel real. It felt like a better Zoom replacement, honestly. So this was the first Hubs scene that I created in Blender. I've gotten a lot better, I think, I would hope. And one of the things that I was really interested in was, could I also use this as an art form? So not only as a place where people could gather and meet with each other, but if they had a piece of my artwork, could that also include this room as a private space for them to explore together with their friends? And so out of that came the Go Beans promotional postcard. So it's not a real cafe. I am a crazy cat lady. And so the name is inspired by cat toe beans, like the little foot pads are called toe beans. So the name is a little bit of a derivative of that. And I created this postcard, which I took to a fair at one point, where you could snap the QR code on the back and then it would whisk you into that room that you see in the lower corner. One other thing that struck me in working with this program was, why don't more people know about this? Like, it's so easy, it's so much fun. And it's kind of, it made VR authoring accessible. And then my second question too was, can I use my work as an artist to try and make this more digestible and more accessible to the public? And so once again, it was just like my work as a science communicator, trying to demystify authoring for VR this time instead of science concepts. So with that in mind, I started thinking about, how do I make this happen? And in October of last year, I got that opportunity with a really good friend of mine, Lori Annis. She's a very talented 3D modeler who's been working in Blender for over 10 years. And she agreed to speak with me as a 3D modeler at the Geek Girl Con in Seattle. So for this program, we really wanted to showcase how easy it was to author a space in hubs and the free tools that are available to the public that you could use to create amazing spaces. So this is what we ultimately came up with. We wanted this to be a choose your own adventure, which was kind of nuts because we had no idea how people were going to decide. And so we ultimately settled on, okay, we're gonna have to have 2 different categories to begin with and probably a few choices, and maybe we can steer our audience towards a choice. And so we wound up building 6 VR spaces total. And this is in the space of 3 months, if you can believe it. So when I say that, Blender and Mozilla Hubs made it easy, I really mean it. Like, normally you would not try to make any sort of VR game in less than a year. So these tools are really making it easy. So these are our 6 spaces. The 2 themes that we decided, we're like, okay, we're gonna give them the first choice. And the first choice is going to be pick a theme. Your choices are spooky and space. So I took the space ones and Lori took the spooky ones. And thankfully, the audience chose spooky because she put way more effort into designing her spaces than I did. I was really focused on trying to get our presentation together and the hotel and all of the registrations and all of the fun things. So I kind of ran out of time, but hers came out beautiful. And so then the second choice in this choose your own adventure game that we decided to play was you had to choose office or cafe or gallery. And so we had the audience vote. And so ultimately the audience voted for a spooky cafe. And then the final piece of this, which I'm still just completely flummoxed that we pulled off, but Lori was able to 3D model something for that scene on the fly based on an audience suggestion. And so she modeled the spooky tree, which we threw into the scene last minute. And then we loaded the scene. So off to the side of this kiosk, you can't see it as the tree. I'm sorry, I didn't get that into the view at the time. More importantly was we wanted to have our audience members join us in the virtual scene that they just created. And so all of the people that you see here, those are all of our audience members, or at least a handful of them. I don't know if we got all 30 people in there, but they were all able to log in from their cell phones and join the virtual space. So when I say that Mozilla Hubs made everything accessible, that's one of the reasons why I fell in love with it. You could join these beautiful spaces with your friends, and you didn't even need the headset to do so. So then I started experimenting with making more realistic scenes with, better lighting. And this sort of worked. This is a holiday scene that I made for my family and friends so that we could actually meet together right before Christmas and have a cool place to hang out for a bit. The cool thing with the hubs is a lot of their avatars had screens built into them. So if you have a webcam and you weren't in your VR headset, you could turn on your webcam and your face would appear on the avatar, and you could roll around and we could see each other just as if we were in the room together. So that was fantastic experience. And again, if you want to talk about insane timetables, I built this one in 4 days. It's not perfect. It's really not perfect. There's some crazy stuff that I'm even seeing now. Anyway, but the fact that it was actually possible to create something for VR that people could experience in that short amount of time, again, was just completely mind-blowing to me. And this is the experience that I really wanted to share with others who were passionate about creating their own worlds. So then for the sad news, I found out about 2.5 weeks ago that Mozilla Hubs is shutting down at the end of May due to a variety of reasons, but mostly just not profitable, I guess, at the moment. And they can't really support the amount of creations that are out there, which is really sad. I'm taking it kind of as an opportunity to try to find something maybe even a little bit more robust. So Hubs was actually a really great program, but it was also fairly limiting. So like if I wanted to pick up the coffee cup off of the counter here, I couldn't. Like there were no interactable objects in there. And I know that was something that they were working on, but really wasn't something that they were ever able to implement. And so that, for me, that's like the next level. Like, can you interact with the objects and then also do things with your friends, like toss a ball to the person across the room and have them catch it, or play a game together. So those were all things that Hubs was lacking that I'm hoping to find in other programs. The other thing is that Hubs is open source and free, and so it's available to put up on your own server if you're good at that sort of thing. I am not. I fortunately do know people who are that are trying to make that happen right now. So that part of Hubs is the only thing that's not easy, is actually implementing it on your own server. But it's fine. It's a Band-Aid, more or less. I would love to keep using it and being a part of the community. But the reality, I feel, is that once it shuts down, it's not going to be actively serviced any longer, and the software is eventually going to go obsolete. And this is kind of the unfortunate side effect of the tech industry in general right now. It's really hard to predict what is going to persist and make a lasting impression and what goes away and kind of fades into obscurity. So that's kind of where we are right now with some of the VR spaces that I'm actively working on. I'd kind of like to switch a little bit and talk about where I think all of this might be going in the greater XR world. So from the virtual, I just mentioned XR, and for those of you who aren't familiar, XR stands for mixed reality, and it's essentially creating things like virtual reality, augmented reality, and AI. Those are the three big ones, and making it in a making experiences that are part of our real world. So bridging real world experiences with tech. And so with virtual reality, this isn't that hard to imagine. So Hubs is a great example of bridging that kind of reality gap as a Zoom replacement, as a way of meeting with your friends. I'm currently working on a project right now. I'll bring up my video here. I tried really hard to get this up for you guys to see it in our VR headsets, and it just wasn't going to happen. But this is my fly-through in Blender. Basically, I'm making a VR version of my website. So it'll host all of my social links, an About Me page, and then, which is right in that space there. Yeah, and I know the lighting is all flickery. It's because the computer's trying real hard to catch up with my movements. But yeah, so I designed this space. It's a little bit inspired by the Deep Space Nine promenade in a way, more fantastical, I guess. But the upstairs is going to host my gallery, so I just kind of threw some images in there to see what it would look like. And what's a fantastical space without a giant tree? So, giant tree, a dome looking out at the galaxy. Ooh, shiny. Okay, anyway. So that's one idea. Another great idea that I saw in VR Chat, which is an event, or another program, Request Headset, which is free, is a marketplace. And so there's a company in Japan called VCAT, and they produce big events in VR, specifically for VR Chat. And one of them that I attended was a marketplace for real-world stores in Japan to sell their products in this giant marketplace. So this is an example here. It's a store selling crazy socks. I love crazy socks. I didn't get to wear my crazy socks tonight, but I love crazy socks, and so I loved this like pizza-themed thing going on here. But what was really cool about this space is you could go up and you could click on the socks and they would appear on your avatar. So you get these really neat little interactions like that. It's a way for the company to creatively market their products. And then they include their information. So this is the information for the real world sock shop in Japan. Oops. it brought up a 3D model of what that home may have looked like back then. So, an interesting case. Oh, that's interesting. Huh. Apparently I'm having stream. I don't know what happened. I'm sorry, everybody. All right, I'm just gonna keep going, I guess. Okay, so the final piece that is kind of the hot topic right now is AI. And for a number of reasons, I think. Of course, we're all sort of familiar with the AI image generation, but also kind of new in this scene is AI for game development, which I think is personally rather interesting. I think it's a new tool for game developers for creating experiences that are sort of constantly changing or that are different or random every time you play. I also think that on that same front, it could be interesting for storytelling. So I have some limited experience with storytelling chatbots, which I've created some and I've messed with others that people have used, and very interesting results. You know, it's not great, but it is definitely interesting. But one of the projects that really captured me was a video or an exhibit from Chicago, from their Holocaust Museum. And so they were able to capture conversations and interviews with Holocaust survivors, which they then ran through their own AI large language model. And so you can walk up to the hologram projection of that person and you can ask them questions from their time during that time. And so this is one of the really interesting storytelling things that I'm interested in. I think it can capture human memories and points in history that I feel like should never be forgotten. So that's my hopeful side of things. Of course, you know, there's ChatGPT and other things, but all right. So we all know that, you know, Star Trek wasn't exactly perfect, and neither is the tech industry, to be honest. We're still evolving and we're still learning. So I'm always asking the question myself, how am I going to create more meaningful content in this sphere that bridges VR, AR, and AI, and uses those experiences together? So right now, it feels like these three major arms of the tech industry are kind of siloed. And I think there are really interesting ways of combining them that we haven't really even looked at yet. So as a small business owner, you know, I think that we, as business owners, offer a lot of, you know, experiences and products and services that larger companies can't offer. And so I think the same is true in the tech industry when small businesses and when artists get a hold of these tools. I think that we start to focus on the more human side of these technological things, and I think that's a really big, important thing going forward. So I'm always kind of looking at, you know, what can I do that is going to be meaningful for the people that are viewing it, and how might I share my stories in a more meaningful way through these technological advances. So I think as ex-artists, which is a new term that is kind of out there, we're really the ones that are bringing back this human component. The more people that know about it as well, especially those that typically don't have a voice, marginalized communities in this tech world, then the better that this could all be. So what am I currently working on? So I'm really hoping that I can continue to bring my programs to places like here, to the library and to the Mix Center, and to keep talking about this, to keep having that discussion, and to get more people playing with the technology. Because if you're not playing with it, if you're not using it and experimenting with it, you can't make an informed decision of how it goes in the future. You don't have a voice with these larger companies on where you think it should go. So play with it, start experimenting. And also, I want to continue to dream up experiences similar to the ones from the Holocaust Museum. And so I'm really working on ways that share my family's experience as Japanese Americans during World War II. So one of my projects is capturing those stories. So this is my grandparents and my mom. My mom was born in Amachi, which is the internment camp in Colorado, which is pictured over here. So trying to capture their stories, because again, I think these are events in history that really shouldn't be forgotten, but I also want those stories to help us imagine a brighter future. So this is my call to action for you. I really hope that this talk has given you at least a taste of what's possible in XR. And I'd really encourage all of you to start thinking about ways that it might benefit your businesses, your work, because we are living a Star Trek future right now. This is the future. So how are you going to start shaping that reality? All right, so I'm going to open up for questions, I guess. That is me at another VCAT event. So,
I have a quick one.
Yeah.
So after you got your master's, have you ever been back, or is this all self-taught through these progressions, wonderful progressions you've been doing?
Yeah, this is all self-taught. I did not go back to university. And again, you know, being a part of Create, we had to learn all of this to open the space and to be knowledgeable so that we could help our users. And so when we opened Create, we all sat down and we hit the classes hard. Like, we went to Tech Shop at the time. We trained at Tech Shop. We got other experts in to help train us. And thankfully, too, the other managers that we worked with, Victor, Sydney, I mean, they were also very knowledgeable and happy to share their knowledge. So we spent a lot of, so we worked on Create from 2014 to 2015. We opened in September of 2015. And so during that time was all learning and experimenting. And then, of course, when the pandemic happened, I had a lot of time, so I just sat down and played with 3D modeling for a while.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. I'm just gonna say, it's amazing to see the things that you built in like what, only 4 days, 3 months. Like, I think that's a true testament as to like your curiosity and passion. So I just gotta say, well done on that.
Thank you.
I have a question in terms of the VR website. What did you use? What software did you use? How did you host it? Yeah, how did you figure that out?
Yeah, still figuring it out. Right now, I'm looking at another platform called Wonderland Engine, which is made for web VR experiences. Mostly games, but other people have done VR websites through their platform. It runs similar to Unity or Unreal. They have a program that you can download to build the site, and then you can upload it. To the upload part, I have no idea how it works, so I'm still trying to figure that part out. But I am going to be like posting stuff on my socials and stuff, so you can follow my journey there. Also on my Discord channel. So yeah, good question.
I just wanted to mention how cool I think the idea of stuff that unfortunately I didn't learn about in school. I only learned about a few years ago working in museums and stuff.
Yeah.
I guess it's not a question, it's more of a comment that I really appreciate that. And I think there may be a native artist that's working on a canal map that's in AR and then talks about wherever you are in the state, you can see what was happening there during the Okemah times and things. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yeah, that project sounds familiar, but.
Yeah, I can't remember who the artist was, but I was going to send you the info for that.
Sweet, yeah, thank you. I very much appreciate it. Oh, we have an online question. Okay. Okay, the question is, are you moving away from making or continuing to incorporate it into virtual worlds? Yeah, that's a really great question. I still have my maker roots. I feel like it's a big part of what I do, even though much of what I'm doing right now is virtual. I do have a physical version of the Go Beans Cafe that I was able to 3D print. Unfortunately, I found out it was too small. Like something in my brain at the time thought that scale was appropriate, and it's definitely not. So I'm going to be rehashing that. But thankfully, what's really cool is all the models that I use for 3D worlds, I can 3D print. So yeah, good question. Thank you. Thank you from the live stream. You can just read it. Okay.
Sora says, I love the idea of making our virtual spaces to imagine a better world moving forward. Are there active spaces that already exist where groups of people are coming together to humanize history?
Yeah, that's a good question. I just attended the Worlds in Play conference, and which was next door at the Mix Centers for 5 days, and it was brilliant. There are other artists that are creating experiences in this sphere, maybe not quite in the same way. VR is still, like I've found out along the way, is not the easiest thing to author for and just like throw up there. Mozilla is an exception. But I think that's gonna change. I think there's a lot of programs out there that are aiming to try and make this process easier. And I'm hoping that through my work here, I'll be able to collaborate with other artists to hopefully make those dreams a reality. But yes, thank you, good question.
Try an extra one. So I'm thinking lead times with clients. So someone who knows nothing about this, hasn't really been in the VR, AR world, but I really want to hire you to create this world, you know, like here.
Oh, the studios.
Yeah, so
okay.
Then everyone can take a look at us, experience us before they come, right? They
yeah.
can look into the corners and everything. But how much like extra lead time are you gonna need to teach me what I want, right? Like if I say, oh yeah, I want this, and you're gonna go, yeah, no. I mean, I'm just curious for us newbies, and this is a brand new world.
Yeah.
Brand new market concept, new client orientation type of thing.
Sure.
I just see that a little bit of extra time with the clients there at the beginning.
Yeah, for sure. You know, a big part of what I do is empowerment. So yes, of course, I will build your space, no problem. You can hire me to do that. But also, I think it's really important for that same user to really understand what goes into it. And that's why I do the public programs that I do, so that you actually get a taste of it. And if it's something that you really enjoy doing, then you can totally do it yourself, yay. So it really depends, you know. If you are looking at building out a version of the studios on your own by yourself, you know, that could take some time. It depends on your past experience. It depends on how much time you currently have to kind of spend on it. Those are questions that I would, you know, have to talk to you about, you know, obviously going forward. You know, the nice thing about the studio is if you have a blueprint already, you can absolutely just use that blueprint to start plunking down objects. And it's actually, that part is really not that hard. It's like building with Legos, and it can be kind of fun. It depends on level of detail as well. I love the little details. And so in my spaces, I like to put in furniture and colors. I like to play with textures like carpeting and walls. And those are the sort of things that really, a lot of people may not notice just walking into the space, but you would definitely notice if it wasn't there. So as somebody visiting a VR world, those are kind of like the little things. I'm also one of those annoying users that when I go to a space in VR, I try to clip my head through the wall to see what's happening on the other side, even though I know something, like nothing is there. But sometimes you get a really interesting view of like how the user put things together. So anyway, it's neither here nor there, but yeah, good question.
Hello.
Hi.
Are you interested in programming for the Apple Vision Pro?
Currently, a lot of the stuff that I do in WebVR would absolutely translate to the Apple. That's the beautiful thing about WebVR. It is not restricted to any one headset or program. Anybody with a connection to the internet can view it. And that's why I use it. I think for me, I'm trying to find the most accessible options so that the most people can experience it. So yeah, anything I design on WebVR should probably work with the Apple Vision, but I don't have the expendable income to test that, so if anybody has a headset or Apple that I could experiment on, that would be great. Thank you, good question. Any other questions?
Are you able to talk a little bit more about how you're teaming up with other makers/creators of color to make virtual spaces more equitable?
Oh yeah, that's a really good question. So currently I did meet a bunch of artists from the Worlds in Play conference. We're not collaborating, they were just really interesting folk that I would love to work with in some capacity at some point. I'm still, not at a stage yet where I've been doing a lot of collaborating, but I am open. Like, I am totally open to that idea. So if you know of anybody who's interested in that sort of collaboration, please send them my way. I would love that. Any other questions? Okay, well, the last thing I'll just throw up here is my Discord, which is here, and then again, my link tree on the right. I did bring a couple of VR headsets which have my space Mozilla builds on them, so if anybody is curious on what that looks like, you're welcome to stick around and try it out. But if not, thank you so much for coming to my talk and supporting me today. Live stream, thank you. I'll see you later. Thank you for coming.